Yes, team, what is happening? Welcome back to another episode of TRYB Talk. So in today's episode, I want to speak about the 3 things I wish that I knew when I started lifting. So I want to take you on a journey from when I first got into training, fitness, lifting, whatever you want to call it, back in the day when I was like 17 or around 16, 17. And how that came about is off the back of fighting. So if you don't know my background, I've got a background in MMA, Thai boxing, jiu-jitsu, etc. And off the back of that, I actually hired a PT. Well, my mum and dad hired a PT to help me with my strength and conditioning for fitness, gain a little bit of shape going into these bouts. So that's how I first got into sort of lifting or training. And obviously that was when I was like 16 or 17. Fast forward 13 years. I'm still getting it in now. And obviously I've been through, the run of the mill. I know everything. I've done everything. I've made loads of mistakes. I've done things wrong. I still do things wrong and you still optimize things. But I want to give you the 3 biggest pieces of advice that, I can give yourselves to fast track your results as best as possible. And I've came from a background as well of science-based. I am very science-based. Also, I like to incorporate a little bit about my own methodologies and what I've realized with myself, but as we know, that only works for me. That might not work for everyone else. So I'm very science-based, which will make sense why I've said that in a second. Taking studies, looking at people in the industry who always look to science and build the best programs possible and the best nutrition protocol based on science, and all these different things. So number 1 is that sets and reps don't really matter. And this is a really interesting one because, again, you might think, well, you've got like 1 to 6 reps, which is classed as strength work. You've got 6 to 15 reps, which is classed as the hypertrophy range or the gaining muscle range. And you've got 15 plus, which is like the endurance range. That's what we were taught anyway on our qualification. But what I've found is the amount of sets and reps that you really do does not matter if the stimulus isn't there. So if it's not challenging, it's not going to change you. So you could do 20 sets of 20 reps and it wouldn't make no difference if it wasn't challenging enough. So sets and reps don't really matter. And this is what I mean about the science-based community. I come from this background, and I used to think that you have to do a certain amount of sets per week or a certain amount of sets per muscle group or whatever, and I would only program that for clients, 10 to 20 reps per muscle group. But when you think about 10 reps on something, how you meant to fit that into 2 days of training for a client who would come to personal training? It just doesn't work. And that's where you've got to take a little bit about science and a little bit about logic and experience and combine the 2. So what I've found, and especially right now online, is that people don't train hard enough. And it's not calling anyone out or calling anyone stupid for not doing it. It's just that people don't understand how far to push it or what that looks like. You might have heard the term failure or pushing to failure. A lot of people don't know what failure actually means. And this is where, that intensity that we're looking for actually comes into play. So as I said, it's irrelevant if you do 6 reps. It's irrelevant if you do 15 reps. It's irrelevant if you do 20 reps, and none of them are challenging. What I found is you want to be able to have a mixture of all of them rep ranges, some strength-based stuff, higher weight, lower reps, middle ground, somewhere between 6 and 15 reps is where you want to be most of the time. And you might have a little bit more over 15 for like bicep work or tricep work or, any sort of conditioning. So a mixture of everything is positive as long as it is hard. And that's the most important thing, as long as it is hard. So as I said, it's not about being as rigid and being like, well, if I'm not doing 20 sets per week or I'm not, doing X amount of exercises, it's not worth it. It's just taking your approach and going, how can we squeeze as much out of this as possible based on what we've got access to? And that's usually down to intensity or difficulty of the movement. So that's number 1. Number 2 is that cardio is more than just burning calories. And my perception on this has changed over the years, and as you probably know from following me on the social media platforms, is that I've ran 3 marathons. I've deadlifted over 250 kilos. Like, I've done a lot of different things, and I used to think cardio. Obviously, I come from a cardio background of Muay Thai and football and X, Y, and Z. I used to think cardio in programs was just for expenditure. So, a client would come to lose weight. You have to start lifting loads of weights to develop your shape, and you might only add in cardio to burn some calories. Whereas my perception on it has changed a lot. And since doing the running, and the amount of volume that obviously comes with running marathons, and then transitioning into more like conditioning and health. And I think that I've got older and start to think about function of movement and how I feel, is that cardio is more than just burning calories. It's fitness, it's health, it's something that I think everyone should do. If you're gaining or if you're cutting weight, it makes you more efficient. It makes you more efficient in your lifting. So if you've got more fitness from cardio-based exercises, that fitness is going to transfer into lifting weights, and that's going to become a lot easier to do, and that's going to become a lot more efficient, and be able to push more per session, which ultimately leads to more results over time. So as well, I think it's really good to do difficult things. And again, I've found this over years of experience of training is why I've done 3 marathons. I don't like running. Like, I just don't like running long distance, but I love the feeling of running long distance. I love the feeling of doing difficult things. So when I first booked that marathon, it scared the living daylights out of me. And again, you've probably seen, again, if you follow me on social media for the last few years, at the end of that first marathon, I was very, very emotional, because the hard work that you've put in and the difficulty that was just happened, it was very overwhelming. And again, it's all about the process of that. So fast forward now, I constantly look to do challenging things, and it doesn't have to be like, go and run an ultra marathon or even a marathon. It could be like, what's outside of my comfort zone? And for me right now, it's something to do with, high rocks, athletics, that sort of stuff, where it's a mixture of strength work and cardio based stuff, because that is massively out my comfort zone. Like, I don't enjoy that, but I know doing it is going to make me a better person, make me more resilient. It's going to give me more confidence going into the rest of my life, which is something that I often speak about. So that's number 2, is making sure that you are using cardio as not just a form of expending calories. Yes, it does expend more calories than usually lifting weights time for time, but do it more than that. Do it for the mental health benefits. Do it for the difficulty that comes with it. Do it for the resilience that's built with it. Do it because you want to challenge yourself, and that's a big one when it comes to cardio. And number 3 is that you don't need to squat and deadlift. And this is a little bit of a personal one as well, because every single client I coached when they first come into the gym as a personal training client would get squats and deadlift in their program. And I understand why we were doing that. Of course, it's because compound movements, you get more done, more bang for your buck. It fills up less time. It's a movement that you accompany into your day to day. So of course it's something that we want to incorporate. But what I've learned is, based on that, is that not every client needs the same thing. So for example, now, if a guy comes to me or a girl comes to me and you want to specifically gain muscle tissue, lose body fat, deadlifts are not usually in the program, or back squatting is not usually in the program, because they're gonna get more benefit from maybe doing an RDL or a 45-degree hip extension, or if it's quad focused, there might be more of a leg press variation or a hack squat, because the whole point of them is to put as much tension through that muscle group as possible. It's a breakdown of tissue. So does a squat and a deadlift do that? 100%. Does it do it maximally for some people who've never done it before? Of course not, because they haven't got the skill acquisition to perform that movement at every level. So it's about taking what you've got, not just teaching someone through like a kettlebell deadlift into a trap bar deadlift into a barbell deadlift, but that might take 3 months to get that movement perfected, or we might just put them into a 45-degree hip extension, which we can load straight away, and then we can get them instant results while teaching them throughout that process, which later down the line they can transfer into a deadlift variation. So that's something that's massively changed with my perception of programming and with clients, is that every client is different. So if you are in the gym, ask yourself, why am I doing this exercise? Like even bench press, I don't bench press very often anymore. I do a Smith machine bench press. Why? Because I'm not really bothered about getting big numbers on bench. I want to put my chest under as much tension as possible. And how do we do that? Through holding that load throughout the whole range of motion, which is probably easier to do on a Smith machine than it is with a bench press. So it's just about the goal, about what you're trying to get after, and ultimately what suits the specific client. So take what I've learned over the last 13 years of lifting and apply it to your own training. Number 1 is that you don't need to do bench and squat or deadlift. It can be based on what your goal is. Number 2 is that cardio is not just for expenditure, it's for fitness, it's for doing challenging things. Number 3 is that sets and reps don't really matter. It comes down to intensity and how difficult you're pushing yourself. So hope you found that useful. implement, implement, implement. And any questions off the back of this, comment below. If you want to kickstart your journey, we have a 7-day TRYB Prime program. So what this is a completely free program. We set you nutrition up, we send you training programs up, we send you habits formation out to eat out at the weekend, completely free. We walk you through that from day 1 right the way through to day 7. If you want access to that, just DM me the way kickstart or comment kickstart, and I'll fire it straight over.